Hello and welcome back to a very special Return to Eden. I'm Joe Ardis Horn. You are in for a treat. Ladies and gentlemen, we actually started this program a couple of years ago, and for lots of reasons that we probably won't get into in this program, it needed to take a hiatus. Much of the people that were writing for the program, many of the people behind the scenes, became consumed with the business of running things like Eden's Essentials, or even just taking opportunities in media to produce things, to go out and speak on health awareness, etc. We have some new members of the team that I'm going to introduce to you right now, and then we're going to talk a little bit about what the relaunch of this program will include and why they're here. First, very talented fitness and nutrition specialist, Kendra Hann. And she's an integrative nutrition health coach and master of health science education, Jamie Woodle. I am so blessed to be surrounded by such great talent. These ladies are very humble, but they have done a lot of work throughout their lives to aggregate information now that will be of huge benefit, I believe, to you, the viewer, when it comes to fighting things like autoimmunity, fighting malevolent disease, supporting your immune system through all of the trials and difficulties that we're consumed by in the world that we live in today, from our diet, the things that they're doing to our soil, the things that are in the environment, all around us, Wi-Fi, the pollution in the air, toxicity, heavy metals. I feel like people today stand the greatest challenge probably of any generation, at least for sure, in the several lifetimes that go back to my grandparents who gardened and knew how to put food in jars and store it through the winter. What is that? The craft of communication, the family unit, the way that we used to aggregate food and develop it from clean soil. Like, much of that snapshot of the world is gone today. We eat out of grocery stores. We're subject to, hopefully, governing bodies of the government who are supposed to be benevolently looking out for the regulation of our food and our medications and things of this nature. And yet we find ourselves in the biggest crisis ever in terms of people younger and younger being diagnosed with conditions like Crohn's disease. Cancers are hitting absolute pandemic levels. And right now, much of the world who have anything to do with trying to quantify where we're headed in terms of speculative numbers are only suggesting that they expect huge rises over the next 10 years in things like autoimmunity and cancer. What in the world, literally in the world, is going on? I want to start with you, Kendra, so that the audience gets to know you two ladies just a little bit. Why did you decide to become a health advocate? What were some of the drivers behind your interest? Were you always interested in health, or did you go through a journey that kind of brought you out of that difficulty, and now today your quality of life is different? What were the motivations behind your journey to this stage today?
So the most important thing about me is that I'm a mother. And my family and I went through a traumatic loss a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And in that loss, I found my salvation, but I also found this motivation to make positive changes in my life, not just for me, but for my children, for my mother-in-law, my brother-in-laws, sister-in-laws, my whole family. I went from having no one who really cared other than my children about my life and my health to just a multitude of people who support me and celebrate me and need me. So my motivation on this journey is to make sure that I'm keeping myself educated, that I'm helping to prepare my children for the world that they're going to be stepping into eventually.
Yeah, well, being around a lot of this, and when I say this, I mean Eden's Essentials and programs like this, and a lot of like-minded staff that you'll maybe never meet, but behind the scenes are doing a lot of herbal tea and detox and this whole kind of apparatus. It's not that it convicts because it's coming from a place of judgment, but you see the quality of the life improving of those people around you, and you start to wonder, perhaps there's some part of that could work for me. And like you said, I'm obviously not a mother, but as a father, I had my moment where I realized that my kids with what I went through with my health, if I don't make sure right now that they're doing everything they can to advantage themselves,
Absolutely.
if they were to suffer some of the things that I did for 20 plus years with autoimmunity and digestive disorders and prostate related issues and cognition and the lack of ability to methylate a vitamin B, which I didn't know for years and years, was slowly eroding what would have probably eventually become my heart and my cognition. That my kids who have much of the same genetics, they've been tested now, and they have genetic SNPs like MTHFR, which we're not going to get into in this program, but it means that they may also share in some difficulty with a process called methylation, which is the process of your body breaking down, storing, compartmentalizing, utilizing, converting minerals, vitamins, the foods that you eat into things like hormones, healthy blood cells. And so when you're struggling with that process, you can swallow whatever you want, but your body is like a burdened engine. You know, the oil is clogged. The engine might have a little life left, but everything is plugged. The air filter's plugged. You can put the greatest gas in it, but it's still going to run with some level of dysfunction. And so our cells, our genetics, our decisions play a role in our quality of life. So as a father, I view my kids as those who could be potentially as I was without intervention now. And this is not going to come from the public school system.
No.
This is not going to come likely from your doctor. This is going to be you being your own self-advocate and a parent, you know, doing the best you can in the world that we live in to raise your kids. And Jamie, I know that this has been partly true for your journey as well,
Yes.
as one who absolutely came out of an exodus of chronic health issues. And that was a lot of the driver behind why you became such a highly pedigreed health advocate, right?
Oh, absolutely. I was always interested in varying degrees to things that can increase longevity and bring health. My parents were always adamant about taking their vitamins, and my dad had a garden, did some juicing, and my father is 95. My mother is
wow.
84. They're still living at home.
My.
And they're really an inspiration. And not that they did everything perfectly. And I was in the pursuit of that, and I did a lot of yo-yo dieting. It's really hard to know what to do and who to follow. So you kind of find the things that are the loudest, what's in the media. I want to try this for myself. So I did a lot of very restrictive yo-yo dieting, and I would lose weight and feel good, and then I'd rebound and gain it all back. And every time I gained more and more weight to the point where I was over 200 pounds. And I continued to try different things, none of them the right things, knowing what I know now.
Right.
But you do what you think is best, and that's all you can do.
Right.
So I got to this point where I was very unhealthy. I was living a very stressful lifestyle where I was working full time, and we would come home and I'd feed my kids convenient foods, anything to get food on the table. And I know this is a very common story. And eventually my health took a turn when I went into anaphylactic shock, and I had never had allergies before in my life, ever. And I almost died. Luckily, the paramedics came in time to give me an EpiPen, but I had gone unconscious. I lost blood pressure and everything. After that, it really became apparent to me that I have to find the truth. I have to do something. The answer cannot be in all this yo-yo dieting. There has to be something. And as I went seeking it, I have known Joe for over 20 years now.
It's been a long time.
And he put out the book Time Bomb, which if you haven't read, I highly recommend. And it gave me so many answers in a direction to go that I knew, because I knew Joe and I trusted him, and I know he dove into the research to find the truth. And that was really the pivotal point in my story. And I eventually adjusted my career path, and that's when I started my integrative nutrition health coaching, and I changed my educational path to get the master's in health science education so that I could dig in. I could know how to analyze the research, to find the research and apply it to my life and the lives of my family.
We're living in a time where, you know, you were talking about digging into research. There are just continued, so if this is you, be patient, keep praying for your breakthrough. We are living in a time where health is elusive and anomalistic. And let's say what worked herbally 20 years ago today may have some effect, but sometimes it takes a triage or a trifecta of different eyes and ears on someone's anomalistic issue with thyroid dysfunction or something. And again, we're going to get into a lot of this over the coming weeks, but I blame methylation, and I blame the reason people are not methylating properly. As many as 65% of Americans now are not methylating properly, the conversion that I talked about before. So swallowing salads and nuts and things that might have historically been good for you may not hold the same benefit that they did, partly because they're nutritionally void. And by the way, having an organic label on something does not necessarily mean it's good for you. There are organic sugar cookies. I mean,
It's true.
people get stuck with these little word games. So like you said, getting to a place where you're even trying to afford the organic versions of food, and it's all very discouraging. And then if you're one who's struggling with something anomalistic, it really can wear you out. In 2024, it can wear you out. The things that are going on with our pathways, spike proteins that are not going anywhere, that have affected the world over the last 4 or 5 years in particular, are giving rise to new forms of Alzheimer's. Cognition in people that were just absolutely as healthy as you could have imagined, in their 30s now, are having almost pre-dementia-esque symptomology, tau pathogenesis. When doctors do the scans, when they look and evaluate, they're dropping diagnoses that you would have thought 15 years ago would be impossible in your 30s and 40s. So the heartbeat of this show is to try to dig into the era that we are living in. It's to challenge the status quo. It's to not take essentially anyone's word for anything, especially messaging from all of the platforms that are approved for the mainstream media in terms of how you combat things like viruses or disease. And we are daring to do the heavy lifting of digging and research to bring you answers to some of these anomalistic issues or conditions. So if you're watching this program and you're thinking, he's describing me, I'm also describing a huge swath of Americans. So that is our commitment. That's what this program exists to do, and in large part why Eden's Essentials exists. For those unfamiliar, we have a functional, holistic, medicinal line of herbs and superfoods at edensessentials.com.
And personal care products.
And personal care products. I am right now working with a company who will partner with us to bring toothpaste to Eden's Essentials. That one has taken a long time because the toothpaste industry is so dirty.
Absolutely.
You know, animal rendered byproducts, fluorides. I mean, you can kind of take what you've been told about dental hygiene and take a lot of it at least and throw it out the window. Bacteriums in your mouth that lead to things like heart disease. Nobody talks about that. What do you mean? The same bacteria guilty for contributing to cognitive decline because your body is constantly fighting plaque, tau pathogenesis, plaques and tangles, and how they build up on the brain, your body unable to detox. And every day, your first move, you know, most Americans, by the time they've been awake for 30 minutes, they've already encountered at least 1,100 toxic ingredients.
Oh my goodness.
Because of their exposures to things like coffee, one of the most pesticide-laden things that people consume every day, the hygiene products that they're shampooing with, the forms of aluminum-laden deodorants that they're wearing. The list goes on and on and on. Even by the time you eat your heart-healthy oat food and realize it's pesticide-laden and really bad for your insulin. Much of what we've been conditioned to believe here, especially in Western society, is just not based in reality. It's based on marketing. It's based on sales pitches and gimmicks.
And this is all setting us up for mitochondrial dysfunction.
Right.
And when our cells aren't functioning correctly, it just continues this domino effect and eventually leads to more nefarious diseases. And it all starts from little tiny things and little tiny habits. And that's something we're very passionate about, getting that information to our viewers to help them make choices and to help them take back control of their health.
Absolutely.
But we also plan to have a little fun. Can we have a little fun? I want to make sure that this program is not so highly concentrated on just science speak and deep dive omnibus that we fail to have some fun. So we will be telling you stories. We may break and pause to tell you about something that was silly that happened this week regarding one of our children, or how that might
Definitely.
play into mental health,
Yes.
or things like that.
Well, I think it's worth noting that all of these minor things that start those domino effects feel quite deliberate. I mean, our children are educated at such a young age to, eat a lot of grains and make sure that you're drinking 15 cups of milk or don't drink milk. I mean, there's
You
just
got to get
this.
your calcium.
Right.
Right?
I mean, it feels very deliberate to me. And so it just makes you wonder what that motivation is. In a for-profit healthcare system, how does it benefit the people who are making money from your sickness to teach you how to be well? It took 2 generations to remove completely our human ability to heal our body with plants and foods, the things that God put on this earth to make us healthy. So that's just something I'm very passionate about. And I know Jamie is too, because we have to prepare our children. We have to prepare our families. They're being misinformed.
Yeah. And, most doctors, I believe, choose that path, that career, because they are driven by the want to help people.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So this is not to disparage your family doctor or anything like. I have
No, not
Christian
at all.
friends that are in Western medicine, and they love the Lord with all their heart, and they are praying through some difficulties with families that are dealing with malevolent disease, cellular dysfunction. But when I speak with them about herbs or nutrition or alternative forms of treatment for things, it is so foreign, it is so beyond. And if not careful, a lot of times it is dismissed as the things of lunacy.
Yeah.
These are risky moves that you would consider that as a way to deal with something that you're fighting. You got to go with what, science has taught us about, fill in the blank. And again, this program isn't meant to spend the next hour talking about difficulties in peer-reviewed case studies. But you will also find that a lot of the information that we are being, and I'll just use the word peddled,
That feels appropriate.
truly is. And again, it doesn't mean that everybody that recites this is malevolent or a part of an Illuminati scheme
No.
to depopulate the earth.
No.
But it does mean that they are misinformed, and they're doing the best that they can with what they've been misinformed about. That is my opinion. And frankly, I think that the mathematical decline in health overall kind of advocates for what I'm suggesting.
I agree.
If we are marvelous in our research, if we're groundbreaking with the biggest technology in the world, then why is disease hitting unprecedented heights?
Yeah.
I've heard it said that we are the only species who have experts, and yet we are the sickest species.
That's
Right.
something to think about.
Yeah.
Right. I like what Father God has put in the soil for our consumption. It is the medicine that I believe the most in. And of course, prayer is something that you cannot swallow. It comes in the form of faith, being on your knees at times and petitioning Father God to do something with you and for you in your health or the health of a loved one in proxy to you. And we see that too. We see people that have no knowledge of nutrition whatsoever, and God will just immediately heal
Oh, yeah.
that growth that needed healing. And sometimes he'll take us kind of the time bomb route. 20 years I asked the Lord to heal me. And eventually his answer was, you're going to go through a lot of difficulty, but you're going to learn a lot of stuff. So anyway, ladies and gentlemen, we always love the former, the instant spontaneous healing, but sometimes he takes you through a journey. And if he's molding you, if he's crafting you, that can be okay too. I'm Joe Ardis Horn. For Jamie Woodle and Kendra Hann, keep on coming back to Return to Eden, where we're going to do our best to advocate for you and your health. We'll be back.